Well, Aniss, Chami, welcome to the Digital Dialogue. Out there at Vitex, one of the absolute success stories of Western Sydney business and advanced manufacturing, and the future's already arrived at Vitex. So we're coming to our second range of COVID hits in New South Wales. Got through. You run a big operation with big staff in Western Sydney, manufacturing medicines on behalf of the major global brand names, and you've got aspirations to go bigger and further. And you're probably the first big Australian tenant for the Aerotropolis. So you've put your money where your mouth is to be part of the future of this city. From your perspective as an employer of people, how's your team coping through COVID and Delta, and how are you seeing it through as a business?
I think being a pharmaceutical manufacturer, we've been quite lucky in that we have a lot of scientific people on site, and these people review credible scientific information, and it didn't take much convincing for them to go out and get vaccinated. We have a 99.5% rate of single dose vaccinations, and by the end of September we'll be close to 82%. So they've been absolutely phenomenal in understanding.
Wow.
And they appreciate the bigger picture in that they're supplying medicines at a time where people are depending on medicines, especially preventative medicines and immune boosting. And there's just this moral, ethical approach here at Vitex by our staff to do the right thing and to keep the show on for the benefit of society.
Are you comfortable as an employer knowing your rights and responsibilities in COVID regard to vaccination and access and things? Are you being provided enough information by governments or employer groups to navigate what could be a minefield?
Absolutely. I think the New South Wales government has done a good job providing information, but I think an employer gained considerable momentum on this vaccination train. That momentum really came about when Fair Work and the Fair Work Ombudsman came out and said, you know, people ultimately need to, especially employers, need to have a vaccinated workforce. And then all the big ticket businesses such as Qantas started to mandate vaccinations for their workforces. So naturally, the employer gained more confidence in giving that vaccination push to their employees.
Well, I think Vitex is more in the hardware of medicines, the tablet rather than the serums, and that we've been. Has this opened up this whole discussion about mRNA, local production, and does this open up opportunities for you if COVID and other pandemics are going to be more of a bit like climate change? They're not going away anytime soon. Is there opportunities for you to think about this as a growth area for Western Sydney?
Look, Chris, you know me. I think I'm the most nationalistic out of all the CEOs in this industry. I have been, for the last 5 years, screaming about the need for manufacturing of medicines in Australia to return to Australia. We had a wonderful industry in North Ryde that was thriving in the 80s and 90s, and that just dissipated in the early 2000s. And I've always been an advocate that medicines made in Australia under the TGA, auspices of the TGA and the Australian Code of GMP for medicines manufacture is the most stringent in the world, and that needs to be respected, loved, nurtured, and fostered here in Australia. I've always been a proponent of that. And I'm glad that there's a lot of action now in that space to return the manufacturing of medicines back to Australia and to Australian quality. The one thing I'm angry about is we should never have had to wait for a pandemic to wake up. We should have always been on top of it. But that's the way the
as they say, it takes a pandemic, it takes a bushfire. It's even how we respond at the time. Anyway, I'd ask, well, what would you know about this anyway? I'm just having a stab at this. I mean, why would you have any idea, considering you've got a Bachelor of Medical Science with honours, a Master of Pharmacy at Sydney Uni, a Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery at Notre Dame, also a Master's degree and a Master in Business and Financial Management from Macquarie, and the board on the board of CMA and the Good Manufacturing Practice Quality Committee. I mean, what would you know about this? I'm
Not
assuming
much.
people are listening when you speak. Governments are responding when you talk to them about this thing. You do bring, considering only, you're such a young man at the same time. I'm assuming when you talk, they are listening. The governments are comprehending what could be here and talking to the experts in the field.
Thankfully, yes, Chris. Thankfully, and good people like yourself as well, and getting the message out there. Ultimately, we want to do the right thing for this next generation. I want the next generation not to be paying for our mistakes. We have to lead them in the right path. We have to be ready for anything. If Australia has good quality advanced manufacturing in the space of medicine and manufacture and innovating and leading the world, people will be turning to us as opposed to us waiting in line for vaccines, etc. It's a good position to be in because these pandemics, Chris, are not going to go away. This is just a wake-up call to how the future may look like. We're just going to get more faster at delivering a solution.
I might have got an honorary doctorate from Western Sydney Uni. Apparently, you worked hard to become a real doctor. So I'll take it from you and consider me sold. I mentioned before the Erythropolis. You're one of the few Australian companies who jumped in. You've got a lot of Japanese and American neighbours out there. You'll have at the Erythropolis in the original cohort. What inspired you, and how come? Maybe a challenge without having a go at them. What's the challenge to other Western Sydney and Sydney-based companies to think about the opportunities in the Western Parkland city that you obviously saw and others have been a little slower at jumping at?
I think for us, for the Chami family, my family that owns this business that has flourished, especially in the last 2 years, we've appreciated the premiumness of Australia. There's something I don't like about the fellow citizens, especially in business in Australia, is they really sell themselves short. They don't realize how premium they are and how good they are at making things and servicing things, delivering things. We have a knack for quality. Australians appreciate quality in everything, in a service and in a good. Now, when we were transporting large amounts of Australian medicine into Southeast Asia and China and realized that we've got these massive markets to fulfill and are desperate for our Australian quality, we quickly appreciated the need to deliver that good or service quickly. And when I heard about the non-curfew 24-hour airport being built in an area where there is considerable amount of land space, considerable amount of focus around connectivity, around internet speed, around IT, around advanced manufacturing concepts, and that we could be part of developing this new city that we are building around this airport, this Erythropolis, that was extremely attractive for the future that we wanted to build. So for us, this was a godsend. I say to any Australian business that is looking for a large pool of labour, a large amount of space where they can grow and develop, and looking for the right timing. My father says this beautifully: the Erythropolis came at the right time for Vitex, because you are going to be part of the design committee. The beauty of the Western Sydney Parkland Authority is that they've involved me in the design process. Aniss, how do you think the road should look like? Lucy Turnbull was one of the first people that said to me, if you want a bigger highway to have more influx of semi-trailers going in and out of Vitex and to provide more access for a large labour force, this is your chance to say that, because we're listening. I didn't have that when we moved into Eastern Creek, and no one on the Eastern Front that wants to build a bigger factory is ever going to have that. You're going to have restrictions as opposed to people opening the door for you. So that was all very attractive to us, Chris.
So you talk about a lack of confidence offered Australian business, and I think you and I, not included, they often say Western Sydney lacks confidence. It doesn't lack ability, doesn't lack talent, but often lacks confidence that's cousins to the east. Do you think we're getting over that? Is the new West now? Are we throwing off the shackles? What people thought? Are we becoming the solution rather than the problem for Sydney?
Slowly. I would like it to go much faster. I think one way to make it faster is there needs to be more emphasis on the soft stuff. And I always say that in any forum that I'm with, you're usually with me. The soft stuff are critical. My employees have already asked me, basic things. Is there a cinema there? Is there a bar there? Is there a pub there? Like basic things that people require in their life to feel
the amenity.
that they're living. Absolutely. If we are going to go out there and it is just paddocks and monstrous factories, that is not going to work. You're not going to drag people out there. That's not going to happen. They want to eat, live, work, play all in one place.
That's the challenge.
Yeah.
I am conscious of your time. I know personally that your family, your faith, are very important to you, and you're deep thinking. But amongst the many degrees you've managed to pilot, you also time to stop and think and smell the roses and have a unique perspective on things. We're looking hard not only at economic recovery for Western Sydney after COVID, but the social cohesion, to make sure this city goes together as one, one speed, not two speed, one culture. How do you interpret the impact on your own personal life? How is life different for you? The scare we've all had as employers, as fathers, as sons, as members of a community. Do you think there's permanent change? Is it just a little blip and we get back to business as usual, or does it fundamentally change the nature of how we work, live, play with others?
I think, there's two dimensions to this question. Number one, my medical hat, my CEO hat. I think at the end of the day, people are not going to forget this, especially this generation that has lived it. And more importantly, they're going to become more cautious. And more cautious and more hygiene may be considered a good thing, but it's actually not a good thing. You're going to get a lot of immunocompromised people and situations where people are going to be very fanatical around their practices of hygiene and how they deal and interact with people. And we don't want to lose.
They say that your kids need to eat a bit of dirt when they're young to
absolutely.
You need to let them roll around on the ground a bit.
I mean, I was, you have to have that. Any immunologist will tell you you are not going to have a good, robust immune system to deal with a myriad of viruses and bacteria if you don't expose your body early on in very low doses to it. That's basic immunology.
We won't live in a bubble all our lives.
Absolutely, and we're going to start to get that fanatical group of people in our society that are going to hate everything and criticize everything. That's not clean enough. That's not good enough. And we're going to be running around trying to satisfy those requirements. Now, as a father, as a husband, I don't know if you're aware, but May is pregnant, and she, she had to make a very difficult decision around, do I get vaccinated? There's no evidence around. We found good evidence to protect us against miscarriage, but there isn't evidence around brain damage, deformities, development, fetal development, et cetera, being made yet after having mRNA inside you. Now, from a medical perspective, I don't think there is an issue, but that was a big conundrum for our family to make. That decision was not easy to make. And then once she is vaccinated, is she going to be safe? Is she going to be healthy? What if she does get COVID? Will she be in ICU? Will we have to force the pregnancy? So, I mean, there's a lot of issues that young families are faced. Yeah, they're big decisions.
And they don't all have the background medical experience you have. Some families are facing this with much less information to make those decisions.
We have a colleague who said to me, "Thank God for you." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because we're too scared to go to our GP to ask for the information. So thank God that I've got you to talk to." And I did think just exactly what you said, Chris. What about people who don't know what to do and where to go? And where to go now, we're being told to stay at home. So it is difficult, very difficult.
Well, sir, if there's a smarter, more driven person in Western Sydney, I've yet to come across them. I'm delighted that you're the poster boy for Australian business in the Metropolis. I'm delighted that we've got people like you on the wall, that science is back and that scientists will now be listened to. Let's hope it also works in the climate change as well as it works in public health. But good luck and Godspeed to your father, Ellie, who's been a legend, and to May, who's going to bring the next Chami generations in. Mate, good luck and Godspeed.
Thank you so much, Chris. Always good chatting to you.
Stay safe.
You too.